And we're back for another Saturday night study session. Crime Curious is a private study group for crime junkies and law nerds. Kilo says hello. He also wants you to know that he is not the teacher's pet. Because I'm not a teacher. And just like that, we were back again for Saturday night at 6 p.m. Mountain, a little post-trial study session. So we spent the last couple of weeks talking about Letitia Stauch's insanity defense. And we started with Dorothy Lewis, who many people think is certifiable in her own right. Anyway, I apologize for missing last week, but here we are. And I still have not yet received the next batch of jail calls that I ordered from the El Paso County Sheriff's Office. So I ordered September of 2020, and I kind of built tonight's discussion around the idea of wondering, what those phone calls might be. I looked around, I looked back on the jail file to find out, what kind of antics she was up to at that time. And I'll include that information with the jail calls themselves. But I also looked in the press, and I remembered that it was September of 2020 when Letitia from jail was giving interviews to Lee Egan of Crime Online. And in these interviews, she specifically pointed the finger at her husband, saying that Albert owed someone named Edgar money, and, being as cryptic as she could, trying to make it sound like they were a part of, some massive gambling ring, or, who knows what. Maybe we will find out, more of what she was trying to put out there by looking at those calls. So in preparation for receiving those calls, I went back and I reviewed the calls that we have before that month and the calls that we have after that month. So we started back then with October of 2020. And the reason why I decided to choose October of 2020 as our first batch of jail calls was because I knew that she had written a crazy ass letter to this woman from Minnesota with a YouTube channel. And in this letter, she had signed it Janelle, and she was talking about her different vampire personalities and powers and whatnot, and trying to say that she had lost time. So in her mind, October of 2020 was just a simple continuation from December of 2019. And, as if the, from January all the way through September hadn't even happened at all. And so I knew that letter arrived to that YouTuber in October of 2020. So that's why I chose that month for us to start with back then. And then the month that we have before September of 2020, which is what is coming, the most recent month that we have is June of 2020. So we don't have July, August, or September. And that was the first July, August, and September that Letitia was in the El Paso County Jail. And I think that those months are going to be more important than I had originally thought, because, I don't know exactly when she transitioned into, in my opinion, pretending to be crazy. Dorothy Lewis would disagree. I guess Dorothy Lewis actually believed that Letitia Stout was psychotic and suffering dissociative identity disorder. I think she was faking it, for what it's worth. Most people do. But I think that in those months, July, August, and September of 2020, I think that we might be able to actually, see that hamster wheel turning into, what would become her insanity defense, which I think, if and I'm just remembering off the top of my head, and it's been a long day, but I'm thinking that she changed her plea in February of 2021. In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, it was February 11th of 2021 that she changed her plea. However, prior to changing her plea, through her attorneys, she wanted to not go not guilty by reason of insanity, but she wanted to she wanted to say that being in jail and being through everything she had been through is what made her crazy. Which, we don't have the time tonight to even mess with that rabbit hole. Anyway, but this is, sending letters to YouTubers who are pretending to be friends. She's pretending to be friends with them. They're fangirling over her. She wants it put out there that she's out of her mind. And so we jump in with October 2020 jail calls, and she starts talking about vampires and all of that, but she does it like on October 2nd. So I don't know if she actually started that in September. We'll see as soon as we get those calls. But I do know that in the beginning of September is when she was really trying to say that she was only in jail because she was covering for Albert Stout, Gannon's father. And so the reason, the thing that I'm using to kind of bond this together and move on to the next section of the post-trial study group, we start with the insanity defense. And my immediate thought against, why I believe that, she couldn't have been not guilty by reason of insanity. The reason why I believe that was because she put on this actual public relations campaign from the first week that Gannon went missing. I first heard about this story on January 31st of 2020. And that was because of the KKTV interview where she had her back to the camera. I was kind of laid up on my couch at the time. I had fallen on the ice and broken my shoulder right under the rotator cuff. And I couldn't move. I couldn't even lay down to sleep. I had to sleep sitting up. And I was, at the time when that happened, I was bartending at a little pub in Palmer Lake, Colorado, which is, where the particle board was eventually found. And I also used to live in Fountain, many years ago. And so, I'm also a boy mom. And here I am. And I can't look away. And that's when I got hooked on Gannon's case via YouTube. And it was because of that KKTV video. And it just felt, I felt the same way everybody else felt when they saw it. And I'm not going to replay the entire thing, but I did just grab a clip of it from my friend Aaron's channel. Let me see where that is. Here we go.
How does it feel when not only you have a lost child who you are in care of, but then people blaming you for that child not being there?
I'm just ready for Gannon to come home. Most importantly, for him to see his family. But second, I am going to be so ecstatic when I'm able to say to people that I hope they have a really sincere apology for all these theories that have came out online, for all the things they said that I have done or people have done. And I just want everyone to know that we're going to find Gannon. And I love him so much. I've helped taking care of him for so long.
Can you talk to me a little bit about him? I don't know him.
Gannon is so kind, and he loves to play video games. That's one of his favorite things. He loves Sonic and Mario, and You know, he's always helpful, and he was always so helpful with the dogs around the house, and we have 2 little cute dogs, and he was always like a person I could say, Gannon, can you go do this? And he would do it right away. You know, sometimes with kids we have to remind them and things like that, and that's okay, but he was so sweet and able to help anyone. He could notice when you're sick and say, are you okay? And such a kind heart.
Do you feel like, I asked you what I need to, do you feel like this is going to help kind of turn the tide of what feels like a witch hunt, in my opinion?
I hope, am I on camera?
You are
okay,
still.
Okay. I think that a lot of people can see that I'm not missing and see that I am being cooperative, but to me, it's okay that they think those things, because the way someone thinks about me, I don't have a problem with that. My main thing is I would never want someone to think that I would hurt Gannon or any of the children in our home, because that's just not the case. I've spent my whole entire life working so hard in education. There was even things online that was talking about my education license and I shouldn't even be a teacher, and they just didn't know that. Like, we moved on a military move, and I didn't finish out my contract, so I gave up my license in that state. It had nothing to do with any criminal activity, you know, or any of those things. And it just got blown out of proportion on my professional status, you know. And
do you feel like these are just internet detectives who think they know what they're doing?
it definitely is. And, you know, here's the thing that kind of saddens me. It's like, if you're going to talk about someone like that and have a witch hunt out for them, why would you even care, like, about doing those things? Because this is a child. You're telling me that you're just as mean, you're just as hateful to talk about someone else like that. That's how I feel. Like, we just should not. We should all come together and wait until the end and see what happens, because Gannon's going to come home.
Any message for Gannon?
The message for Gannon I have is, Gannon, when you get here, you'll be able to truly tell what happened. And then I really hope I get a sincere apology from everyone who has made all those things, especially from my husband. We just wanted to add a message to Gannon from my family, is that we love you and miss you, and we hope that you come home soon. And Gannon, I can't wait till you can come home and let everyone know that you're okay. We love you.
Now, I do understand, you know, after Spencer Wilson's testimony, Spencer Wilson was the investigative reporter there, multimedia journalist for KKTV in Colorado Springs. You know, after watching his testimony and seeing the various cuts of this video, I don't think, you know, she didn't have it planned. She had just left with her little caravan of people from the house, getting her stuff and Harley's stuff from the house. The sheriff's department was there. It was awkward and uncomfortable, and she was angry as she was leaving the house with her van load of belongings, you know, that they were able to get from the house before it was sealed. Anyway, they're leaving the neighborhood, and they see Spencer Wilson and KKTV kind of set up on, you know, basically like 1 or 2 blocks over, leaving the neighborhood. And so she basically like yells something out the window at Spencer Wilson, complaining about the way they're covering the case, and saying that, you know, she's getting these death threats and everyone's making her out to be the bad guy, and that they need to be more responsible as journalists. And so Spencer Wilson, you know, calls her on it and treats her with respect, and even leads the questions as, you know, like it's a witch hunt, in my opinion. You know, go ahead, say what you got to say. And I'm so glad that he did. I'm so glad that he did, and I hope that he continues to do well to this day. Anyway, so she gives that interview, and then I really, you know, just could not get enough. And so that was Friday, January 31st of 2020. She had killed Gannon on that Monday. She had hidden his body. There are people coming in town. Gannon's family's coming in town. Letitia's family's coming in town. She's displaced. You know, they're staying at a hotel. I mean, it was just, let's see. So just a real quick rundown, you know, the Monday, obviously, you know, is the day that she killed Gannon. And then Tuesday, Landon gets to town. Albert gets back in town. Wednesday is the day that, well, Landon gives a police interview at the station on Tuesday. So does Albert. They're trying to track Letitia down and they can't. Harley's not answering the door. And then Letitia finally rolls into the police station on Wednesday afternoon and gives that ridiculous interview, which ends in her going to the hospital and basically escaping the hospital, into the next day, which is Thursday, which is when she and Harley are approached outside the Marshall's department store, and they take Harley's car and Harley's cell phone. And Aunt Brenda gets into town on Thursday and then comes in and picks Harley and Letitia up. She's got her nephew Dakota with her, and they go get a hotel. So then the next day, Friday, Letitia and the caravan of her people go to the house, get whatever stuff they're allowed to get, and they're driving away. They stop and they talk to Spencer Wilson, and they do that impromptu interview. And immediately, Letitia becomes active on social media. She may not have planned this encounter and being on the news, but she definitely, in her mind, was going to work it to her favor. Of course, it had the opposite effect, and it made her almost instantly infamous. But, she's not as smart as she thinks she is. Anyway, so the very next day after that interview with Spencer Wilson, the very next day, she's in a different moving van from the one that she had that day during that interview. And her daughter are on their way ultimately to South Carolina. But at the time when they take off, they think their destination is Florida. Letitia's going to find them a place to live in Florida, and that's where they're going to relocate. It didn't end up working out that way. She had to continue on to South Carolina. We'll get there in a second. Anyway, so she gives this interview, and she's talking about how the police are doing her wrong and how she begged for an attorney, none of which is accurate. She won't get into any of the details because remember at this point, it was Wednesday morning that she and Harley spent the night at the house Tuesday night, and that was the last night they spent at the house. She wakes up that morning and she pulls Albert into the bedroom. He had slept on the couch. She pulls Albert into the bedroom and she says, "Look, I need to tell you what really happened. Actually, I was sexually assaulted, and you guys know the rest." And then Albert goes and gets Landon and then brings Landon into the bedroom and has Letitia repeat the story. At which point, Letitia disappears again, finally ending up at the police station to give the first official story outside of the BS that she told to responding officers Monday night. Man, I really feel like I'm rambling. Anyway, where was I? Okay, so Friday, KKTV interview. The very next day, she's on the road. She's out of there. She's gotten the body in her possession. She's moved it from one vehicle to another. Oh God, I hate saying the body. I feel like that's very cold. Sometimes I do it just so I can get through the facts. But do not think for 1 second that I will ever forget that little boy on the screen. That always brings me back. Like, okay, yeah, I'm on a fact-finding mission, but it's not all research. This is all very human as well. Anyway, so when I believe that Letitia's public relations campaign, which is the reason in my mind that she was in no way not guilty by reason of insanity, is because of the public relations campaign. And I believe that her public relations campaign actually started on February 5th. And here's why. So this is from February 5th of 2020, which is the following Wednesday. Now, keep in mind, sorry, again, I'm going to take you down for a second. Keep in mind that on February 4th, in the early morning hours in Florida, February 4th is when Letitia dumped Gannon's lifeless body over the side of that bridge inside the suitcase. And so the very next day, this interview was aired on television, and Letitia saw it immediately.
How do I describe my G-Man, my Gannon? Gannon's my hero. I love him so much. He's not only my hero, he has multiple people that call him his hero as well. He has so many family members that just look up to him at such a small age. He's full of life. He's happy. He's energetic. He loves sports. He loves Sonic. He loves going outside, playing with his friends, his sister, his neighbor, especially Braden. This neighborhood basically gives you a true example of who my son is. Everybody coming together, all the smiles that people have. This is why I have hope, because I feel it. This is Gannon truly speaking to our community. Gannon he loves blue, he loves Sonic, he's into coding, he loves riding his bicycle with his sister, and I know that he's missing that right now. He holds his job as being Big Bubba very important, and for him not to be able to talk to his sisters has to be hurting him. This week has been awful. It's been more than a roller coaster ride. It's been more than emotional mess. I don't even have answers for my feelings other than I'm afraid. I'm afraid that I will never hear his voice, that I'll never hear him run and say, "Mommy," that I'll never hear those corny jokes that he always tells every single day. He has to tell me a joke. He looks forward to telling me something silly. And I'm afraid that I may never see that again or hear it. I don't want to believe that, because that means that I'm giving up hope, and I'm not giving up hope because my son is full of hope. So I'm urging anyone that has any leads, credible leads, if you're too afraid because you know something, a kid just doesn't disappear and no one sees him. It's not how this works. So if you have anything that's credible, if you're afraid, don't worry about it. Imagine my son, how afraid he is. Imagine how afraid Gannon is. So please call, please write. If you need to have someone else to do it for you, please do. Because my son deserves to be here. He deserves to be here. Please call the El Paso Sheriff's County and let them know. And I thank you guys, the community, for what you've done, because this is Gannon. This is who he is. And I thank you guys so much.
When Gannon was born, he weighed only 1 pound and 6 ounces, and even today he's still our miracle child. He still is. And he's such a happy child, and he just brings life to every party. His smile, even today, is keeping us going. His infectious smile brings me joy every time I think about it. The past 8 days have been, as Landon said, a roller coaster of emotions. Sometimes we jump in for joy because we get an information that we might think is a break in the case, and then the next minute we get we see something or get information that just breaks our heart in a million pieces again. But through all this, just know that your thoughts and your prayers and your messages, keep them coming, because even if we don't respond, we are receiving them, and that has given us strength to get through this. And I do want to say I'm so proud of Lena, my little baby girl here, and of Landon, my children's mother. They've been so strong through this, stronger than I would have ever thought that I could have ever been, and I'm getting strength from them as well. As I said, please keep sending your thoughts and your prayers, because we are receiving them. And if you have any information at all that could help, please reach out to the El Paso County Sheriff's Office with only credible information, but any information that you think may help. Thank you so much. Your turn, baby.
I love you, Baba.
Oh boy. What a monster. So, where was Letitia Stout when that video came out. She was in fact, I have it right here. She was at 2665 Reagan Lane in Kissimmee, Florida. And she was there under one of two false names. It was an Airbnb. And she was either using the name Kylie Britt, or she was using the name Taylor Stout. Not because Taylor was an alternate identity and she was in crisis. No, this is February 4th, into February 5th. And, was it a 9-day, 10-day psychosis? Did she, anyway, we know better. So, so on February 5th, which is the same day that video we just watched came out, Letitia puts an ad on Craigslist. And that ad on Craigslist reads as follows: I am looking for a room for myself and my 17-year-old. Both are responsible working professionals, and we have 2 small puppies. Looking for a nicer place. Amenities are a plus. Need immediately. Okay, so you're staying at an Airbnb under a fake name in a state where you don't live, and you're on Craigslist wanting to rent a room in somebody else's house for you, a teenager, and 2 puppies. But you're both working professionals. Neither one of you has a job. You've both quit your jobs, but you're both working professionals. You still identify as working professionals. Okay. Can you imagine if somebody would have answered that Craigslist ad? She made that post on Craigslist 24 hours after dumping Gannon's body. And now she's looking to move in with a stranger, her and a teenager and 2 puppies. I mean, man, I don't know how she didn't get any takers. And this is also the time, find me a rich guy. She's looking for all kinds of things online. Anyway, so she can't work it out so that they're able to stay in Florida. And so they keep motoring on to South Carolina. I did grab this photo. So this is the photo of the bridge in Florida when they were recovering Gannon's body. So she makes that stop in the early morning hours of February 4th. February 5th, she's posting on Craigslist. And then February 6th, she arrives in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and returns the budget rental van, and goes on about life, trying to start over, and is playing the victim. And she made sure and told Harley that people were following her, so that if they did find Gannon's body, well, obviously they were following her, and she knew they were following her. I mean, who wouldn't believe that? It's just asinine. Anyway, so February 7th, she lands in South Carolina. And this is when, remember, the pretext calls kick in. And I didn't clip any of those for tonight, but I am working on a separate video where I will include some of those. So during this time where she's just dumped Gannon's body, like disposed of that young man like garbage. I mean, she's an absolute monster. Anyway, so after she's done that, the very next day, Landon and Albert and Lena are on TV. And that sends her into a fit, and that's where, the pretext phone calls and her sending him text messages, like, how dare you, and accusing him of, being with Landon, and, because that's more important than finding Gannon. She knows where Gannon is. Anyway, so Landon and Albert and Lena give that interview on February 5th, which is just 6 days after Letitia's back to the camera interview. And then the next thing I have queued up here is from February 10th. And I took this from a video. I do not know this channel, but the channel is listed at the bottom of the screen. If she's got some good stuff over there. And she was clipping this stuff off of Facebook in real time. And I appreciate that. So anyway.
Okay, so this first one is posted, just on her Facebook and addresses her friends and family, and it reads, I want to thank my family and friends in the Carolinas who know my character and my dedication to our family. I have sleepless nights every day wondering what could have happened differently. Don't let the media fool you with videos and false info. I have cooperated with everyone and given them all that they ask for. Sometimes they let social media create these accusations to keep them busy because people involved in that nonsense have no interest in finding Gannon. With that said, I will only tell the truth, not accusations. I've spent the last 6 years of my life fighting for custody battles, helped Albert pay for it all, was the only person who stood by him in courtroom after courtroom. I took the kids from coast to coast to be with each parent, even driving through the night, extreme weather conditions, and countless amounts of airplanes. This is not to bash any parent going through pain, but to say that I have pain as well. Everyone remembers months upon months when I was the only provider, Albert in Alaska, and Landon was all over the place. We rescued the kids from horrible homes, living in motels, guns in the back of their cars, their house getting robbed, all the way up until I got the Instagram message saying that she could not take care of them anymore. Out of love for my stepkids and my husband, I stepped in, delayed getting my doctorate, took care of them because I wanted to. Took them on adventures that most kids their age would never see. My husband had to prep the kids every time they went with their mom for their safety until we eventually had them in our home 90% of the time. He works crazy hours, lots of school, training, and took care of our needs. I took care of these 2 children like my very own. I wasn't perfect, but everyone saw all our pictures and the love that I gave them. Was it hard sometimes? Of course. Because I grew up with Amy Lowry, my stepsister, and all our families got along with no problems. So it was difficult navigating through that, but I want everyone to know that it is well with my soul because I would never harm a child, especially not our children. On Sunday, we went on a hike and Gannon was there crying with me because I was crying. It was the day Kobe passed, but he had no idea who he was, just that I was upset. I had every intention of covering up the fire that he started and protecting his feelings from what I assume she meant punishment, he thought he was going to get. That was our plan. The next day was to rectify the situation so that his little heart could stop crying. I had the video because somehow my phone was recording and you could hear how sorry he was. I have the pictures after we returned home, so please don't believe what these people are speculating. Albert is hurt. He has a lot on him and he's always left me in charge of the kids. He has to go through his emotions, but he will start to remember how I helped rescue them and have been our family's rock. I'm going to make the next post just about Gannon, but I wanted to clear up some of these accusations and lies. These people have painted me to be this horrible person, and I want to know the truth, that I had these kids because they were in an unfit situation in which G of Lytton placed solely with me until Albert left Alaska. I rescued them because I love them. That's the kind of person I am, who would continue to love them and treat them like my own always and forever. Call it what you want, because I sit back, let people say horrible things that just wasn't true. Just some of the facts. There are hundreds more, so they need to be looking at finding Gannon, not blaming me. Next, we're going to look at the post that she posted on her neighborhood Facebook page, letting people know how she felt. I'm going to go ahead and say this so y'all can delete me. No desperation here, just to show how dumb people are. It's well with my soul, but I've had enough. Call it trashy, but I've had enough of the lies and threats. Most of y'all in this speculation groups are delusional. First, the neighbor sold the video for money. Then there was another one from the other side that was sent in. But they haven't released that because of these wannabe detectives. It's a tactic to keep idiots busy while we find Gannon. You guys claim to come together, but have brought hate in the same sentence. Gannon's mom didn't give a shit about him or his sister. She had them at motels, abusive situations, criminal scenes with her husband, did drugs. Heck, Gannon even found her iPad with her doing drugs, and we have pictures of those. Albert rescued them from guns in the back of their cars, police stops, living from place to place, no home, and even had to fly on a plane from Alaska through the night to bring them back to us because she changed their school 3 times and had no place to live. She sold his toys, his Switch, and other items for drugs. So keep thinking that she cares and raising money. Gannon is still out there, and for those you making all these speculations in some group are idiots. What about raising money for a reward, not supporting someone who is faking? They know exactly what was told to them, and they have followed those leads. Downing a person who has taken care of kids more than their mom is stupid. Know the facts. They don't involve someone hurting him. This is who you are putting on a pedestal while trying to bully someone else based on tasteless wannabe keyboard detectives. Do what Gannon would do. Realize he needs to be home so he can be with the people who took care of him and loved him.
Let me take that off the screen. So that was February 10th. So 5 days after that video that upset her so terribly. The very next day, February 11th, furthering her public relations campaign, she, let me see if I can bring it up here. Yeah, that'll work. Letitia, on February 11th, releases a public statement through Fox 31, which is a channel out of Denver. And this is her written statement. First and foremost, I would like to thank all agencies, volunteers, and community members who are working diligently and praying endlessly to bring Gannon home safe. Thank you to my husband who has stayed strong through this and protected our family to the best of his ability, and our immediate and extended family members throughout the East Coast. To Gannon, please come home soon, because your daddy is waiting to watch the new Sonic movie that comes out this week, and the cool shirt I got you to wear to the theater is in your closet. Social media has been devastating, from the harsh comments, speculations, threats, cyberbullying, etc. It has been a challenge when people are trying to run you off the road, waiting outside your hotel, threatening to kill you, etc. I encourage the sheriff's office to take down those pages that promote negative behavior and violence. Let's do what Gannon would do. Be kind to one another. We all have engaged in something crazy online at some point, but Gannon would want everyone to get along and to focus on finding him. I know that many people have kids and are invested in this because it hits close to home for them. I would like to think that overall most people are genuine and want to do everything in their power to find G. With that being said, please take a step back for a moment and let me explain to you a few details that were not released. For example, just like the video that was leaked, there are additional details that were hidden due to, number one, the department doing its job, number two, the effects of social media and how some individuals would criticize or hinder the investigation. I chose to listen. I didn't leak videos or information. But at this time, it's getting later in the process, and we just want Gannon home. I feel the need to fill in some gaps. Now, let me stress this. Police have known this since the first interview, which I guess, I guess she's not counting when the police showed up the first night, and responded to her missing, runaway child report. I guess she's talking about since Wednesday, the 29th of January, when, she told them all about Eduardo. So here we are at February 11th, and she's putting something in Fox 31. Okay. So do I have page 2? There we go. Saturday night, G was helping me unload in the garage and cut his foot because there are lots of tools because Albert does woodworking. He sat on the edge of the car and we bandaged it up. He was good to go. He always loves helping his dad in the garage build things like his Lego tables and the flower pot they built for me as a gift. After this, I noticed G kept going to the side of the house. He told me he was checking to see if the gate was locked because he was the only one with a gate key. It made him proud to be the man of the house while Albert was away. Fast forward, we did a hike on Sunday, cleared, and shopping on Monday, cleared as well for him getting out of the other side. Please don't think for a second that there isn't enough of technology to determine shadows and movement around the truck. There was also proof from my phone that we had taken a selfie in the truck in our driveway that was time-stamped. We always send pictures to Albert when we are out and about or when he is away. That can be scanned for actual time verification. Last, from day one, the sheriff's office has known a description of the person/friend whom Gannon left with. I explained to them and provided evidence. They had information about G having the key to go out the side gate. Last, they have more in-depth details than go along with this, pointing to who sent the person or why he may have come. Again, I repeat, they have had this initially, and I was asked to keep quiet about it so they could have the best shot at doing their job and bringing G home. The last thing that they needed was a hindrance to their investigation. I encourage you to think of any suspicious cars that may have been in the area watching a few days prior and keep praying for G. Oh boy. Okay. So, we've all seen her police interview, the one that on Friday the 31st, she claimed that she was begging for an attorney and they wouldn't give her one. And they held her against her will and they blocked the door and, all those things that she said. So again, I repeat, they have had this initially, and I was asked to keep quiet about it so they could have the best shot at doing their job and bringing G home. She was, at no point was she asked to keep quiet about anything. She didn't tell them about Eduardo, and they said, "Oh, don't tell anybody about him." But this is her talking to the press, trying to correct or have a louder voice than the media, than Landon, than Albert, a louder voice than the sheriff's department who did the interview with her. She's going to get her version of events out there, even though it's absolutely false. But she's running a public relations campaign. And it's all very calculated. Aside from stopping Spencer Wilson on the 31st, that wasn't planned. But from that point forward, everything that she did, she had an actual campaign. So I would also include, what did I think of earlier? So the letters to the judge, she knew that those letters would be released publicly. So I would include those as part of her public relations campaign. Also, the interview, a couple of interviews that she did with Crime Online, which we're going to get to here in just a second. There were other things that she did. I don't know. It's not coming to me right this second, but let me take this down and share my screen. Okay, so the first letter to the judge was August 12th, 2020. And again, that's one of those months that we don't have jail calls for. So I am going to go ahead and commit to getting the jail calls from July and August of 2020. It's just that altogether, they're almost $600. I just spent $385 on the September calls. We're going to take it, one step at a time, but I've pretty much decided that I'm going to get all three. Okay, so this was from September 3rd of 2020. And I'm going to skip the first part. Okay. In March, authorities found Gannon's remains under a bridge in Pace, Florida, shortly after Letitia Stalk was arrested and charged in connection with the case. According to Letitia Stalk, however, she has been covering for others, hoping that the, quote, full truth that's, quote, not sugar-coated would come out. Him, which is Albert Stalk, and Edgar was getting into it because he owed Edgar some money. We had the money that should have been paid from the cruise, Stalk explained. And then another quote says, Albert made a stupid decision, It just wasn't, a good situation. So, he told me a story to tell the police, and I just didn't know what to say, end quote. Stalk also claimed that her estranged husband told her, quote, she didn't have a child to lose, end quote, and that he had many law enforcement and military officials that could assist as long as she didn't snitch. Letitia Stalk explained that she went along with what her husband said because he claimed he would, quote, pull some strings to help her out. Where the police, messed up is January 27th. He was on a train. You see what I'm saying? I'm thinking that's their thing, but it's not because they came to my house with hours of body cam. There was nothing. Like, you check my car on the body cams, you take everything. You just don't like it. There was no way, you know what I mean? Their time frame, it was all wrong because they couldn't figure it out. Where was he, Gannon? He truly was gone. He was with Edgar. He should be here for manslaughter because it was on January 28th. That's why the police didn't have anything. Albert came in on the 28th from the airport and was like in a moment of rage. I mean, I could be on the low end and I could say, he should be here for murder, but I'm not. I'm saying that it should be, I guess manslaughter would be the right thing. End quote. Stalk added that she wouldn't reveal the true identity of Edgar, which could possibly be a pseudonym because he has dangerous affiliations. Crime Online could not independently verify the validity of Stalk's claims. Sergeant Minot with the El Paso County Sheriff's Office said there is an active gag order in the case and could not confirm if Letitia Stalk made a report with law enforcement. Albert Stalk has not been named a suspect or a person of interest in the case. Last month, he broke down during a memorial for his son held in Florida. And he said, I just wish my angel wasn't in heaven. Only after the memories came spilling in from his classmates and friends did I really understand the impact my son had. And I'm not going to continue on reading that, but oh man, so meanwhile, all kinds of articles are being written, all kinds of videos are being made. She lost her access to Facebook. Oh, I remember now. Another thing that she did on her public relations campaign were all of the false identities and sock accounts that she was using on Facebook. She went as far as using a false account pretending to be a private investigator that was working for Letitia Stalk, fake name, everything, and did a Q&A in a Facebook group answering questions as a fake private attorney. It goes right along with her fake sonograms and her fake polygraph. But, I say all that to say, it really was, okay, so let me make a note of that really quick. So false identity, Facebook group, Q&A, PI. I can't remember the name that she used. And I don't think it was a real person that she was, I think that it was just a completely made up person. But she was answering questions as if she was a private investigator that was working for Letitia. Surprise, it was actually Letitia. But anyway, so, all of the public relations stuff, it starts accidentally on January 31st of 2020. But as soon as the news stations release that video of Landon and Albert and Lena, then she digs in and she doesn't stop. She does everything in her power to try and get her version of the story out there, her constantly changing version of the story out there. She's sending letters to strangers. She's trying to build an audience and an army of people who are on her side. And I mean, it's just awful. But it's a calculated public relations campaign is my whole point. And so the idea that she was, in this moment of psychosis or, all I know is October of 2020, she started pretending that she was missing a large chunk of time because, I'm sure she had been studying. And loss of time was one of those keywords that she needed to use, and so I know she really started pretending to be crazy in October of 2020, but it may have started in September of 2020. I can't wait to get those phone calls, and I will start releasing them as soon as I get them. But knowing that that article was, where she was blaming Albert, was printed on September 3rd of 2020, that could make for some very interesting phone calls throughout the month of September 2020. Let's see. I went through the statement. Please do remember Gannon on Tuesday. Tuesday is the 6-year anniversary of the day that Letitia Stauch took his life and started this years-long roller coaster of all of the lies. I still don't feel like we have the full truth. I don't think we ever will. I hope that she sleeps with it every night. So I've got about a 9-minute video to take us out and keep us right about 1 hour. But this is from March of 2022, this video that I'm going to show on our way out. And it is from her first sanity examination that was performed by the state. So she begins acting crazy in the fall of 2020. And then in March of 2020 is her first real test with the psychiatrist at the state hospital, where she's been practicing for a very long time. Fall of 2020 to March of 2022. So, and then I also threw in a clip from her FBI interview, because, we just listened to everything that she was putting out publicly, whether it was with Fox 31 or on Facebook, about what a terrible parent Landon was and how she was guilty. And then September of 2020, it's Albert, and Albert is guilty, not to mention all of the other fake people that she tried to incriminate. And then we get to the FBI interview after she said all of these horrible things about Landon, and she's meeting with Johnny Grusing, and she's like, oh no, I wanted those kids to be mine. And she also, but then in this interview in 2022, she's weaving this story about her mother-in-law and about how she was in cahoots with Landon to get the kids back to Landon, because she was going to leave Albert because Albert was abusive, but he was only abusive because he found out that she was in cahoots with Landon, because she was trying to get the kids back to Landon, which is a far cry from her original public relations campaign about what a piece of shit Landon was and how she probably did harm to her own son. Anyway, I know that we've been all over the place and it's insane. I never pretended that my mind was all there. These are just the things that I'm going through because I'm trying to piece it together. I want to go from her pleading not guilty by reason of insanity and playing that bullshit out all the way through trial and how that went, and then take it back to find the place where she decided that she was going to start faking this shit, because she did it for years. What we heard about on the outside, it was nothing compared to what the wheels that she was trying to turn on the inside. Anyway, it's about a 9-minute clip. It's from her first sanity examination, and the whole video is available on the post-trial study group playlist, and that's on the homepage of the channel. And I am going to play us out with that and then just go ahead and wrap it up. So I'll say goodbye now, and then I'll see you in about an hour. I'm going to do a public live stream on Colorado's case against Kimberly Singler. So I hope to see you guys there.
We have, as you got older, there was Leticia Taylor. Mm-hmm. You said Taylor was the protector? Yeah, Taylor's my main person. No, Maria's my protector. Taylor's my main personality. Thank you. Maria. Mm-hmm. So who are we talking to right now? Yeah, okay. When you say Taylor is the main personality, what do you mean by that? It's like, okay, so you notice like where Leticia, she's like more like into her like thug life. I guess you can say like rap music or something. But Taylor's everything is like Leticia wanted to be, because she gets to be like kind to everybody, but like successful. She has a whole separate world, you know. She's married to Tyler. They have kids. I wanted to be in Leticia get married to Tyler. No. Taylor is everything Leticia. We got it backwards. Taylor is married to Tyler, have 3 kids, Ariana, Alicia, and Adriano. Do you and Albert ever have any problems with the book? No, like, okay, so Albert's mom is a nurse practitioner for a psychiatrist. A lot of extensive experience in psychiatry. They would constantly tell Albert, I need to be on medication, or I need to be doing it throughout our whole marriage. You know what I mean? So that would cause a lot of problems. Like, even if you look at the report that she wrote the police before I got arrested, she talks about, you know, in there about, you know, 1 minute I'm this way, 1 minute I'm that way. You know what I mean? So, like, basically was married to him and her. You know what I'm saying? So it wasn't necessarily a lot of physical. There was not, you know, any physical abuse. It was a lot of emotional abuse. He's a narcissist. So, you know, he's the victim and everything. He took advantage of my mental, sometimes I way my mental status would be, and like go to his mom about it, and they'd all try to like, you know, tell me I need to be on this meds, or I need help for this, or I'm crazy, you know. So it's more so mental and emotional. You know, there's never any physical up until the end. When we got custody of the kids, he thought I was in cahoots with me, which I guess you can kind of say I was. Because if you look at my phone record, you'll see my plan was leaving, but I didn't want to leave the kids. Several messages you can see me say, I don't want to leave the kids, because I know they will get taken care of. So we had custody of them. But their mom, she started dabbling in drugs, but she wasn't ready to get the kids back yet. So my plan to her was always like, I'm gonna let you know right before I leave, but you better have a house, you better have everything together, and then I'll help you get the kids back to Carolina.
Parenting should be 4 people, not 1. What a suicidal person might say. I mean, these make me very sad when I read them, because I can see you're doing all the work at home by yourself.
Which I wanted to be there. Like, I wanted to totally have the kids as my children. That's the point you're not getting. Like, I wanted those kids to be saying to me that I'm their mom. Yeah. Like, I am the person who does it, cares for them, loves them, everything.
So when he found out that what he called it, was in cahoots with her, that's when he started getting violent and aggressive, like throwing lamps in the house, there's a video on my phone they have where he stopped the car, because I record it all the time, because I wanted to keep all that evidence for Landon to have. And he's beating the piss out of Gannon, and he's flinging stuff like irate because he thinks we're all in cahoots against him to get the kids back. And he's like, you're just trying to take the kids from me. You're trying to get them back to their mom. So once I got the cars from him and we lived together, that's when it became like that. There was no kidding me with his hands. It was just flinging stuff in the house, being angry, slamming doors, punching doors. Like, he would get like that because he was working down. I was working with her. I mean, which I guess you can see it as me working with her, but I felt like if I left, they were going to be taken care of. Like, he's going to do the work. He's going to make sure they clean. Nobody, he wouldn't. So he doesn't have that nurturing piece or that ability to multitask or none of those things. So in a way, I was kind of working with her to get the kids back home, but I guess he took that as he's going against him. I was doing what was right for them. You know, I was leaving.
And so the kids would have been his kids.
Right. Right. If you look at all the school paperwork, who always talked to, up until I finally he realized what I was doing, that I was collecting evidence to get the kids back home to her, because she had already promised me that I could see the kids whenever I wanted in Carolina, like that she would not take them out of my life. She had already told me that. And so, like, once I started collecting, he would notice I'd be driving down the road and I'd have the phone on. And I'd just start collecting everything. Because I'm already a paranoid person. But I knew, like, if I start collecting stuff, you know, like, I would have it to give to her for everything. And I wanted her to get a sobriety first, get a home, whatever. And once he noticed I started doing that, that's when it got a little bit violent with him speaking. I was trying to set him up and take the kids home. Like, his weren't paranoia. His was just because he knew I was right with him. He knew that everything I was collecting was preparing for when I left. Because if you even look at my phone searches on the evidence, you'll see that, like, I was like looking for a place to stay. I was like getting everything in order. I had already told Gannon, like, on Wednesday, I'm going to call your mother and tell her what's going on, but we gotta wait till Wednesday. The reason I said wait till Wednesday because I was starting that flight attendant job, and I wanted to make sure that everything had went through my flight attendant, that I had been like officially hired. I was going to the training, everything before I said up to her that, hey, I'm leaving. You know what I mean? Here's our plan. This is what we're going to do to get the kids back. They wanted to go with me, but I told them, I was like, don't charge me with kidnapping. If you don't call the country, we got to have a plan, you know, so. But that was always the plan. So they can call it cahoots, whatever they want to call it, but my plan was to make sure I know that Rhonda and Matt would take care of that. So Landon's mom, dad. I know as long as they, because when I was in South Carolina and I had the kids, they were the only two people that helped me with anything. I had by myself, so I knew they would be safe with them. Whatever I needed to do to prepare them to have them, that was the obligation. So.
And about how many months, maybe before this alleged offense happened, did things take where he really became aggressive?
I know it sounds I've created so many different personas in my life, and so many different ways to cope with everything I've been through. The sunlight is one of them. Like being in somewhere warm, being somewhere where I can use those coping skills to help me when I have a flashback. You know, when I wake up from a nightmare. So I tried to talk to him about it, and I said, hey, Colorado and me just don't, you know, like it's causing me to get worse mentally. I was having more of my manic episodes. I was just like having more episodes where I forget and lost the time. And a lot of it was because I didn't have those coping skills. Like you can't play softball here in Colorado. You know what I mean? Not during the months that I'm used to playing back home. And so, you know, all these skills I built over time were taken from me in Colorado.